Hello everyone, we are here with João Almeida, or Solemn Portuguese. Anyways, he ended up in 3rd place here in Lisbon Springfest 2022. Now, Almeida, talk about it.
First, I want to give a big shout out to my sponsor, Locals at Porto. They got me everything I needed. Everything. I mean everything.
And your team, no?
This big boy right here, get a big load of that. That's a MPix foil right there. All the MPix I own are from my local. Every single card that I got here is because of this big local that I have here in Portugal. Right there. That's the first Magnolia I went into when I won my first locals with this deck back in trial deck meta. So get a load of this. 3rd place. First we have the standard. Well, not standard, because you know, since I have quite a loaded collection, these were supposed to be fronts, but piece of Bushiroad doesn't make fronts SP besides this. So I gotta run this piece of garbage, but they're full art, so that's why. Continuing, this big boy is the best card Bushiroad ever printed. They are gods, God Company, Kamige. Yes, this card it's the engine of the deck. This card does everything. I think you already know how this deck works. Basically, Magnolia Grade 4 player is a spectator to the deck itself. And the whole deck makes itself in deck building. That's why the backbone of it is this lineup right here. The 3 orders of each, and this deck for the specific matchup of Prison. Prison has the grade 3 that rests a card called Not from Hand, and since I played around it with MPix, you have columns of 3 or less when you ride Magnolia Grade 4 and call it an Inlet Pulse from Soul. And then you can bonk that off with this motherfucker and call another MPix, another Inlet Pulse, killing that Grade 3. Which means you have another really consistent board, and then you can just call this, which happened a lot, call another copy. You can also call this one if you're relying on intercepts, because sometimes you don't get into your PGs until later in the game. So you gotta rely on the intercepts to keep the game stable, especially because Magnolia, although it wasn't the biggest matchup or the most difficult in this event, it's still piece reliant to some extent, and most people are rushing with their pieces, which I personally think is bad play. Local Timmy doesn't agree.
Little Timmy doesn't agree. That's correct.
And this 5k guard helps you with that type of player. Next up, why run 7 orders? Little Portuguese Solemn, why you run 7 orders? That's too much, that's a lot of brick in hand, what the f***? First off, you, okay? I can do whatever I want. Second of all, there's 95% chance with 7 orders that you will get your order on the first 6 to 7 cards, which are the cards that you get on your first turn. Which means that going first, you draw 1, go to 6, right? After mulligan. Ranker Chain puts you to 8, and then you discard 1, which means you're up 7. It will hit. It will just hit every single time. There was one time in the last, I don't know, 3 months that I didn't hit an order. That's how consistent this is, and that's why I run 7. That's why I think a lot of people in Magnolia sometimes fail because they lose all the pieces, of course, because they discard these bricks instead of discarding these pieces right here, which are your right deck discards. And finally, there's one crucial thing that is matchup knowledge between the situation with the promos, that most people don't have the promos to play, so I didn't count Prison or even the Mirror much in consideration. So it was full Gravidia Barrow, the two most threatening decks in the whole format. Secondly, I lost only to Prison, first because the matchup was very difficult to play in that situation, going second, and third of all, in general, the deck plays ultra smooth. Ultra smooth. It just continues to farm up resources, never stops. It never stops. And if you maintain the equilibrium between the orders in hand, your grade 3, your grade 4 rides, and even sometimes when you're out of luck, the one copy of the first Magnolia right in hand, you'll always be set to proc these, get your resources later, and continue to push. One thing that the deck lacks is a power spike. Not in the sense of it grade 4 not being strong enough, but it is consistent in the numbers, but it doesn't spike up, right? It goes 23, 19, 23, 18, 23, 28, maybe with a front, right? Which means that the numbers are really calculable. They are very predictable. So where do you tech around that? First with this, because of how you can snipe some of the pieces of the format. And second of all, with Genosera. Genosera is essential to the game plan, because if, and that's a little bit of a side note, but that's also why I don't think crits are that invaluable, because you can slice up the crit between one of your other units and pass the power to Genosera, and Genosera will give the 25, then 25, to the unit with that crit. And that's how I sometimes win games. In this case, it won me one game on Swiss, where I got the crit and the draw instead of the fronts. I didn't get a heal. These two, and passed the 20 from the triggers into the Genosera, which was 35 into an inlet pulse, swinging 18 plus 25, 40 something.
Wait, plus 35.
Numbers.
You said both of these in here? 35, then
40,
plus 18.
40, 45, 48, 53, which means 53 with a crit. Okay? Big numbers, big crits, big damage. That's how I won one of the games. One of the things that and this is probably the last note, is the role of Panthero in this deck. This is a card that will just win you outright games where you break. Because even if you discard full cards for everything, and even if you don't get the orders, having these in the grave will mean that you will just come back to the game with 4 attacks, because this is not placed from hand. You can just go 1, Soul Blast 2, Soul Blast 3, Soul Blast 4, and call something from hand. Also, a 5k, these being 5k means the 5k plus of the Magnolia Grade 4, they can hit interceptors, which sometimes are relevant in times where you do break. But coming back to Panthero, oh, you can't, so you don't have 3 Soul Blasts. Okay, you always have 3 Soul Blasts to do. So these cards are really essential to a moment where you just go all out and have nothing left. And that's pretty much the deck. Third place, I was really fortunate to have these amazing team members. They did the best they can. They fought through the hardest. The games were just insane throughout the whole event, be it Swiss or top 4. And the most important thing to me was that even if I came third, to me I came in first because I defeated Nuno Raimundo.
Against his team. We
Which
won
was
against his
a
team
big
Prio.
nemesis, not a nemesis, but a rival that I wanted to win against since like 5 years ago when he came to locals and just bonked us back in G Outline era. So that was my biggest concern and I did get it. So that was the big victory today and I thank you so much for watching. Come back again to our channel.
Before that, any shoutouts you wanna give?
The second shout out is to Ventura Games. Can you come here, bro?
I'm recording for the video. Can I?
The deck profile
Shout
of
out for
Ventura,
this amazing
biggest seller here in Portugal.
sponsoring
The biggest
this
man.
tournament though. Thank you really
And
much.
the blue.
And the blue. Thank
That's
you really
it
much.
so much. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you back here in the channel. Bye bye.